What's up, guys? Zane here. Got another episode of the Everything Vibe podcast. As usual, I'm joined by Ronnie. Ronnie, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's been super busy, but I'm feeling good, and I'm super excited about next week. I'm sure we'll get into that some more in the episode. But yeah, things are good. How about you?
We can get into that right now.
Okay.
Well, first of all, things are good. Thank you for asking. I guess I'm in a good mood because I am heading to London for a couple weeks at the end of this week. So it's just a matter of getting through these next couple of days. But I am not the only one traveling this upcoming week. Sounds like you have some travel plans which are more relevant to this podcast, which
Sure.
I'm excited to share.
Yeah. So no, I'm going to be heading to LA for E3. So I'm super excited. I had the opportunity to do some of the press conferences. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make my travel plans around those. So I'm actually just heading for the main conference days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I'm super excited to meet with folks there, check out lots of awesome games, and I'm going to try my best to cover as much VR-related content as possible and share it with everybody in the coming days. So please keep posted on Twitter, on the podcast, because we're going to be trying to put up as much as possible.
Yep, and just a quick reminder that our Twitter is just @everythingvive is the handle, and Ronnie's doing most of the tweets there. I'm on Twitter as well, but if you want to get in touch with us, that would be the best place for just quick reactions or quick questions or whatever.
Yep.
And then just YouTube, Facebook as well. So let's jump into it. This week we got another game talk, and this is a game that I think you've spoken about previously on the podcast.
Yeah, I had a chance to check it. Yeah, I checked out an early build at GDC. Early in the year.
Yep.
So I met with the developers, Third Eye Studios, and awesome group of guys. Had the pleasure of interviewing them previously. And now, we got review codes from them, and we were able to play the final version of the game. And today is the day that we get to talk about our thoughts on Downward Spiral Horus Station. So you've had a chance to play it for a little while. I mean, even all the way back at GDC, at least a little bit of an intro. Today was my first day, and I gotta say, man, I was super impressed. I mean, I gotta preface this. So the game is like it's in Downward Spiral Horus Station. You're kind of stuck on an abandoned space station, just to give a little bit of context. And we'll dive into it more. I think Ronnie and I have a couple of different buckets that we want to get into. So like the presence of the game is one, gameplay mechanics is another, the narrative is a third thing, and we'll dive into each of those respectively. But I don't know, man. For me, like I gotta just put some context out there or preface this and say that like I'm a big like space guy or space and sci-fi nerd. So like this was just exciting to be able to play a game that takes place in kind of that environment. And they did a really good job, I have to say. And I guess we can just start with the first bucket, because to me it's one of the most important, I think. And then you mentioned it as well as being your number one. So and that was present, like 100%. Like graphics. I don't know if it's my card or whatever. Graphics were decent. Like they weren't. Yeah.
I don't want to say that they were bad, but it's not like they blew me away either. Although there were certain points where. I don't want to give anything away, but like, you either at a window or if you have a chance to be outside of the spaceship where you get to see the Earth in its entirety, and it's beautiful.
Or whatever the planet is
whatever planet you're on, orbiting. It's really breathtaking. I had to like stop and just like take it all in for a moment and just be like the presence is just so good. And then I know it's been described as somewhat of like a horror game as well. So like just the sound, the mechanics, not mechanics, but just like the sound, that like the eeriness of each room, just stuff kind of flying around in 0G. Like, I don't know, man. I was thoroughly impressed. And this is just like a first impression. I've only had a chance to jump in there once, but I did spend a good amount of time in there. Now you've had the chance to jump in there multiple times in different builds. What are your thoughts on this final version?
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, like you said, like since we're focusing on presence for the first category, I mean, that's really this game's strong suit is presence and really atmosphere.
I mean, a lot of the things that you were saying really kind of hit the nail on the head for me as well. And that's kind of why also, going into this review, we wanted to divide up everything into, different categories, because it's easy to just kind of, go on and on about just how you feel about this game. I'd say that's the biggest thing with Downward Spiral, is you get a very strong feeling playing the game. And that really creates a strong sense of presence. It's everything from I think really the sound design probably makes the biggest difference, because like you said, I do think the graphics are actually really, really good. They're kind of simple though. Like you can tell, like as far as what they were able to accomplish, I think the biggest thing is with the lighting system, like what they're able to do as far as, like the lighting in this game almost has this thick kind of dingy look.
Yeah.
Like it feels like classic sci-fi. The best way to describe the feel of being in this station is you really feel like you're almost experiencing a movie like 2001: A Space Odyssey for yourself. Like you're in this environment, and I know the game supports co-op multiplayer. I mean, for me personally, I really like playing this game by myself, because really it's those eerie moments of awkward kind of silence when you're in these environments, and then sometimes being surprised by the enemies, being surprised by certain I guess I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it without giving it away, but certain setups and certain situations in rooms that like you're not excited. Like you walk into a room and you see something there, like kind of set dressing that, while it might not necessarily affect the gameplay directly, it affects you and how you feel in that environment. And
they did such a good job with just every room and every area being like super creepy, and I know that's what they were going for, but they really did a good job with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So, and yeah, you mentioned graphics a little bit. I do want to mention a few effects that actually, like, as far as VR go, there were a few things that I noticed when I was playing that were like super, super effective. And I wonder if this is a difference between, because you mentioned, the graphics were fine for you. They didn't super blow you away. Something I noticed, because I've played the game in both my Rift and the Vive.
Yeah.
For some reason, the game seemed to be running at a higher resolution for me in my Rift than the Vive, and I don't know if that's accurate or not. Like I'm trying to I actually reached out to them, and they were kind of scratching their heads, the developers, on what could possibly be causing that on my system. But I noticed like there were certain effects that just blew me away. Like there was some like lighting. Like again, I don't want to give away too many of the scenes in this game. But
let's stay away from spoilers, just because that's a big part.
Yeah, so I'll be super vague about it, but like there's some specific types of lights that I got close to that were kind of reflecting off the inside of my visor in VR, and it felt like you were literally like in a space suit at that moment. Like the lighting really was strong, and then same thing with like there were reflections from colored lights on your player avatar in that situation. So like you'd look down at your arms and hands, and like just the way the lighting was affecting the player model, like it super bought me into the fact that I was like in that environment. And then I guess one other thing that like, or two other things. There's a certain gun, and I don't know if you had gotten a chance to get this weapon or not, but it was a weapon with like a screen on the back of it. And when I first got that screen, like that weapon, that whatever effect, like plastic effect they had on the screen, like it looked like it was like a legit, like real plastic, like I don't like. There's a few things that like when you see it in VR for the first time, you're like, oh, that's weird. That looks like I could touch it, like it's real.
Yeah.
And there was like an effect that they were using on that, and then like just various heat wave effects and all that stuff. Like it's all these little subtle things that make it feel like an authentic experience, because like I've played other sci-fi games in VR, but I haven't played a sci-fi game that really makes me feel as if I'm in a real place like this game, and it's not completely like, just the graphics, because like you said, like there's certain things like, I mean, the textures are like, they're nice, whatever, like the room architecture, like all that stuff, like they're all like, it's hard to put your finger on it. It's more like this game as far as the graphics, the sound, all that stuff, and we'll get to the sound in a second because that's a huge part.
Yeah,
but it's like it's somehow all those things come together, and it ends up being greater than the sum of its parts. Like whatever, like it's all about putting you in that place, that feeling like you're there, and they just nail it on the head somehow.
Yeah, so I just want to like go back to the graphics. I kind of regret actually bringing that up because I feel like us not saying it's really good means by default it's bad. Like honestly, when I brought it up, like it was just meant to say that like the graphics were like acceptable. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that. Yeah. I don't mean that at all in a negative way. It was just like it was just like a normal VR game. It's not like something that like really stood out to me. And it wasn't bad. It was just like it is what it is. But there were certain elements within the graphics, like certain scenes, like I said, when you're like out in space or looking at the planet, where that just kind of blew me away. Even if it's like whatever resolution or fidelity that it was, like that still blew me away. Like what?
No, and likewise, like it's like for me, there were certain effects. Like I said, I wasn't like trying to point out graphical effects or things that I noticed that I really liked how they looked or anything. Like when I tend to take notes when I'm playing games just because I know we're gonna have to talk about them. And there were just a few times when I was playing, like I said, with the way the lighting was, like really gave me a lasting impression. Some of those specific types of effects, like the plastic, shine on the screen and the heat wave effect, like those things really stood out to me as like, oh wow, I haven't seen an effect like this done this well in VR before. I want to write it down. Like they were, and I mean, going off of like the sound is definitely, I'd say if the sound wasn't there, I think the feeling would be way different. Like I think that eeriness that you keep mentioning and that I keep mentioning, a lot of it has to do with how great the sound effects are. I mean, from like the moment you load up the game, even just in the menu, the score in the background of that menu creates a mood to the game.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like those, like it feels like classic sci-fi to me, like those, like Alien or 2001, like those older movies that like really have a strong sense of like almost like a Stanley Kubrick film, right? Like,
yeah, no, it definitely gave me the Alien vibes for sure, like the original like movie where it's just you're just walking around a space station or ship, and it's just like that was, I think, the perfect way to describe it. And another thing I want to mention too with the sound design, like just being able to move around, stuff kind of like clanking around different places. But this isn't a spoiler. At least I'm gonna just say that it's not, and so I can talk about it. But like, I mean, at some point you go outside of the space station, right? And I think that whole process of doing that, where you go from being inside and then like using an airlock to get outside, and then all of a sudden like sound just disappears. To that to me was like really impressive and like obviously very noticeable, and like ultimately, like I mean, for me that was like at that moment when that happened, I was like, that's when I realized it was the sound that was just like totally doing it for me. You know what I mean? I was just like, this is on another level in terms of sound design.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it's stuff like that, like I almost like I hear what you're saying as far as like going back to the graphics, because I think that's the way to point it out, is like there's certain things in this game that are like that are good, that are like kind of your typical like in a high quality VR game, like you're used to seeing like nice corridors and like normal, like all the environments are handled really well in that respect, but then there's certain things that just like stand out, like that are a cut above anything else that you usually play. And the sound design is like 100% one of those things. Like you notice right away when you're out in space, or when the score really hits you certain way. Like each room has a different feel, because depending on what what the developers are trying to get across. Like there will be like heavy score notes, or there'll be this like, eerie silence, or the suction out of sound that like, and all those things are done to a degree that's, definitely well above average. Like you're not going to, find that in every game that you play in VR.
Yeah, and just another thing that I wanted to mention too, whatever it was that they did with the, like the helmet of the spacesuit that you're wearing.
Yeah.
Just thinking back on it now, there was, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the word when you're like in a tight space, I'm blanking.
Yeah, like claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic, yeah. That claustrophobic element of like, even though like I knew that I had cleared the room already, like I was just looking around and like ready for something to pop in my face. Not in a horror movie type of way, but like I very much felt like I was in a spacesuit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like somewhat less mobile and all that. I don't know. That was just like a noticeable thing, and it was just such a nice touch to the game too, in terms of like, in terms of presence.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I think some of that will cross over for me anyways when we talk more about narrative. But like, that's one of the advantages of the approach that they took, which is to say like most of the narrative in this game is kind of expressed to you through the environments, through what's going on. Like nothing's kind of spelled out for you for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think one of the advantages of approaching the story that way is that, like you said, like you go into these rooms and you're kind of using your own senses and your own, like, I guess your own presence in the environment to kind of figure out how you feel in each room. Like there's nothing like even though you may have cleared out a room, there's nothing that necessarily makes you feel comfortable. Like that's a given, like that something isn't going to come back and get you. Well, like you're always kind of scanning the environment and trying to, because you don't know exactly what the game's going to throw at you next.
I mean, I'm constantly turning around and like just, even though like there's nothing there, like it's just, it really had me like on the edge. And like, I mean, I love that. Like, first of all, like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of like scary movies. So like this, like being put into your nightmare is kind of like not really my thing, but that's just because it was so effective in what it did, and it like really made me feel that. So I don't know, maybe in a way I'm like training myself for for future situations. But you started talking about narrative. I think we can just kind of pivot into that as like the second bucket.
Sure.
So my thing with this, and maybe it's because I read a little bit about the game as well and some feedback on the game, but I think that the narrative was great in the sense that you were required to go out and like search for things, but I don't know, I just like one or two voiceovers, like minimal things, I feel like would have helped with the game. You know what I mean? Sure. And maybe that's the exact opposite of what they were going for, because but like it's just like I don't know what I'm doing here, or what happened, or like what the goal is, like where am I trying to go. And like you slowly start to get that from context clues. But we were talking about before starting this, I think, like how long it was taking to play like each act. And so not that like I want like a short game or the game to be much longer, but for me, like I think just adding something in there with a little bit of a directive, like I don't know, it just would have added something. It doesn't need to be much, even like one single line of voiceover or one single thing of like prologue intro to be like, here's the situation.
And I wonder,
I feel like would have helped.
No, I totally agree with you. I wonder how much of that I would have gotten. Like I want to say I did play the prologue, but it's been a long time, so I don't remember what happened in the prologue. I mean, if they put stuff in that prologue that they really expect you to kind of take with you to give you the full context coming into Horus Station, then I wish they would have included that, like just like forced you to play through it or something.
If there was stuff on there, then they should have definitely included it.
Yeah, no, because I agree with you. Like thinking back, like I had the same feel. Like on one hand, I felt like there was something missing from the narrative as far as like knowing the context of why I was at the station, what I was looking for, that kind of thing. On the other hand, I loved the fact that I was kind of discovering things for myself as I was going through it. And like some of the mystery elements, the fact that you didn't really know what was going on or what to expect, added to the sense of presence and like the fear you have, going from act to act, room to room, etc. So like I'm a little divided as far as like what the best approach would be, but like yeah, thinking back to it, I think the biggest thing that was missing, for me anyways, as far as narrative, is just that initial context. And so like because like imagine if you're a real astronaut. I'm trying to think of what like a real adventurer that was sent to the station to kind of figure out what happened. I mean, you would go into there like being briefed on what we knew about the situation, at least what your purpose was, and then whether or not what happened at the station was anything like what the people back on Earth or people were at like what they were expecting. That might be completely different, right? Like as you go through the environment, you may discover for yourself completely new and unexpected things, but you would at least go in there thinking like, okay, these are the set goal. Like yeah, it was a little bit strange to me that like again, like I thought it was clever and it really served the gameplay that while you're in the station, all of your objectives are on the screens within the station. So it's telling you like an objective, turn this portion of the station on, or these parts of the station are inactive. Like, you need to go into like those things helped me from a gameplay perspective to know where I needed to go. But then there was that cognitive dissonance of like, wait, why is the station telling me that this is my objective? And like, if they do have an environment explanation for that kind of stuff, then it like to me, I wasn't fully aware of why the station would be telling me those things. So like it's all those early contexts. But like yeah, I mean, I speaking to developers, I 100% know that their goal was to have the environment and the gameplay tell the story for you, like rather than them outlining it like as far as like with dialogue or with and so I totally get that, and I think that for the most part that pays off. I just think there could have been, like you said, like I don't know if for me personally if I would have I like the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of sound. Like maybe if there was some like gargled like eerie kind of sound clips every now and then to kind of remind you of maybe what was going on at the time or something, like some of those little things, like maybe some more environmental clues about what, because I mean, arguably before, I don't want to give anything away, but before whatever happened on the station happened, people were kind of, living their, like there were humans on the station doing their thing. And you would expect there to be kind of a little bit more, artifacts showing what they were up to before, the catastrophe hit. So like stuff like that maybe would have been, I mean, I chalk it up to the fact that this is really, as far as I know, like their first main push like in VR and in the platform, and I like they really nailed the environment and the atmosphere and like the sense of feel in the game. And so it almost is like there's certain elements of the narrative, there's certain elements of the gameplay, which I'm sure we're going to get to in a second, that like could have been fleshed out more, but it's like, but then they just knocked it out of the park when it came to just the feel of the station and the atmosphere.
Yeah, and I look, I don't want to be too nitpicky in terms of narrative. Like I said, it would have been a nice to have. It definitely was not like necessary, and obviously, like I still very much enjoyed the game and the experience based on what's there. And now that I'm trying to think back to it, like I agree. Like I think that there was definitely a nice element to being like, let's figure out context clues and having to like really explore every single like control center or panel or something to find out how to get, it's almost like an escape the room type of experience, except you're on this like massive space station instead of just like a tiny room. And so, that attitude, because it's just like, so wait, like I got to go to this creepy, like little panel that's all the way in the corner of the dark room. Like, okay, like this sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sucks in the sense of like, okay, like I gotta do this for the game. But, I'm trying to think of something that wouldn't like affect that part of the game, but still add something. And I can only think of like a prologue scene or something that you're witness to, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why I'm really like, as we're talking about this now, I really wish like we had like I said, I wish I had played the prologue to have that background, if it's in fact in the prologue, and like I said, going forward, if that's the case, like I just wish there was something like if for your average player that just coming to the game without knowing much about it, they just see it in Steam, they're interested, they might not necessarily pick up the prologue. So like it would be nice to have that either included in the game or some kind of a note from the developer explaining that like either pointing you to the prologue if that context is there, or like distilling what was learned in the prologue into some kind of a I don't know, short narrative prior to experiencing the game. I know that might take away from some of what they're trying to set out to do, but if people aren't playing the prologue, then they need that background.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, like we're providing an opinion. Like I'm curious to get people's feedback. So like if you guys tried this game out, like if you disagree with me, definitely let me know, because maybe I'm in the minority of like wanting something else. For a lot of people, like I mean, and I still agree with the fact that like the exploratory nature of the game. And like letting events unfold in that way, it was still fantastic. I think I'm just like I said, I think I'm being nitpicky, and I don't want to be, right, because like I don't feel like it's necessary for this type of game. No, it's just something that I read that made me start thinking.
Yeah, I think we're being nitpicky, honestly, because the game is such a good package. Like
fair enough,
if this was just like an average, I mean, we've played a lot of VR titles, right? And like some VR titles, to be quite honest, like they're a little bit more superficial, or they just have like a small gameplay element, and you don't really think to kind of delve deep into all of the different aspects of the game, right? This like Downward Spiral, I mean, and going into it before I had met the developers, before I had played the game, like I didn't really know much about it. I didn't realize that it was going to be as in depth of an experience as it was, and because it's that much of an in-depth experience, I think it lends itself to like we're not just like, for most games, like they're just like a kind of a one-trick pony. Like you would just look at the atmosphere and say, man, this atmosphere is amazing, done. In this game, there's different levels to it, and so whether it be the environments themselves, the sound design that complements the environments, or the narrative and the gameplay stuff that we're about to talk about, like you can tell all of those aspects were at least approached and focused on by the team, and to me it seems like those, like the graphics, the sound design, the atmosphere were 5-star, like really they just knocked out of the park on those things.
Yeah.
And then on the narrative, they did a good job, but it services the game, but it doesn't stand out to me like the atmosphere stands out to me.
You alluded to it. Let's just move on to the gameplay mechanics, because to me that was another very, very big strength of the game, because it was so original, right? Like I don't think at least I don't think I've played a game similar to that. And maybe I haven't played too many space games, but a game like this that was ambitious enough, and like you said, kind of provided the full package where it had the presence, it had the narrative, and of course the gameplay mechanics were fantastic, because this is the first time that in VR I'm moving around in 0G and or zero gravity, and so you're literally floating around like you're in space. And I was really curious about this beforehand, because I was like, that to me is probably similar to locomotion. And not I have my, I've built my VR legs, so locomotion is fine for me. But I was just curious how that would be kind of floating through space, and if there was anything that they would do to mitigate those effects. And I think the closest thing I can come to is the fact that you're wearing some type of helmet, which I think blocks off a lot of the side, a vision that, what's the word I'm looking for? Your side peripheral vision. There you go, man. Yeah. I'm just lacking words today. So and easy ones too.
I'm just happy I'm able to help, because usually I'm clicking trying to find those words more so than you are. So
no, I appreciate you having my back. So so that to me was really cool. This might be minor spoilery, but the main tool that you use to get around I don't know what it's called. I was just calling it like a grapple gun, but
I call it the same thing.
Yeah, that to me was very original and very cool and well done in terms of its actual mechanics. But yeah, I mean,
I agree.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I guess like for people out, more people that have Rifts probably, because it's really a game that's only on the Oculus. But there's a game called Lone Echo that's out that people have played on the Oculus and maybe on the Vive through Revive, that has like 0G, like you're able to kind of push off of the environment and stuff. Kind of similar, even though that game came out actually after the prologue of this game. So really, I mean, as far as like kind of figuring out the 0G stuff, I really do think Third Eye Studios were the first team to really like knock that down. And so like so there have been other 0G games out, but I'm totally with you as far as like my limited time with Lone Echo versus this game. And Lone Echo, like most of the people I've played that game with, and that game has a very different. You really can't compare Lone Echo very much to Downward Spiral Horus Station, because Horus Station is such I would describe it as more of a cerebral, atmospheric, type of game, whereas Lone Echo is more like one of the. I want to say it was Upload VR. I can't quite remember, but like as I've been like kind of perusing Twitter and seeing like kind of the quotes on these games, like they mentioned Lone Echo as being kind of the gravity as compared to I forget what movie they compared Downward Spiral to, either Alien or 2001 or one of those types of, and it's really like 100%. Like one is kind of more in your face actiony, whereas this one is more cerebral and really like it hits your heart, your soul a little bit more as far as like what you're experiencing, right? And I just feel like in the Lone Echo game, like I wasn't able to play that game for very long. A lot of people I showed it to, same thing. Like you might. I don't know if it's because they give you a little bit more control or because, like you said, little things like blocking off things with your visor helps quite a bit more in Downward Spiral. But like the Downward Spiral, I mean, I can sit in Downward Spiral and play it like act after act and not have any issues of feeling like I need to take a break or anything like that. I always feel like I can get around everywhere, whereas in other games similar, like I'm not able to do that as much. And I think a lot of that too, it's the fact that they give you so many options to move around. Like there aren't, I mean, one of the biggest, I think the reason Downward Spiral for me is such a big success is the fact that, they create that environment that really gives you a sense of presence, like we were talking about. And then they give you the tools to be able to navigate that environment in a way that's really fun and satisfying. And so being able to push off of things when you need to, but then be able to pull yourself to things using the grappling gun is like, for me, it was a perfect, balance, because I felt like anywhere I wanted to go, there was like a fun way to go and do that. And I never felt like sometimes like in VR, I mean, like at least in some of the times I spent with Downward Spiral, or not Downward Spiral, with Lone Echo, like just getting to a place was, a chore in and of itself. And if you had to do more exploring, you're kind of like, oh, like I was already looking over there. I don't really want to like reorient myself and go back. Like in Downward Spiral, I have fun going from place to place in the environment and searching it out and moving from place to place. Like as I played more and more, I got more and more comfortable and was having, fun just like navigating from one side of the room to the other in the most efficient way possible, right?
Yeah.
All of those things were fun to me. Like it was when the mechanics of just moving around in an environment are fun, and the environment has something interesting to see and feel, like that in of itself. That's, for me, that's why this game, like even if we were to stop the discussion here, like it's an amazing experience to me, is because those key elements are there. Like you'll have fun just exploring. So if you're into exploration, like you don't need to look any further. Like this is a game that like you can be recommended, like for me anyways. And that's what the motion like. And so I know we've, like, as far as gameplay wise, we've only been talking about like the movement systems. I guess the other big thing would be like I mean, I guess we can talk about the gunplay, like the fighting, and then also the like the puzzles. So for me, like those are weaker than the movement systems. Like for me, anyways. So for the gunplay stuff, I actually really liked it when, like in certain situations, like when enemies were up close to me, the guns are really satisfying up close. Like the muzzle effects on the guns, the reloading mechanisms, like being it like the feedback you get when you're taking the enemies out is really amazing. But like I wasn't great at aiming from far away. I don't know if that was just me or if it was the game, but like I enjoyed it more when I was up close and personal. And then the only thing I'd say was a little frustrating, as far as the gunplay for me, was that I noticed, as I went through the game, I would get through scenarios more by trial and error than like by initially feeling like I could strategize from the get-go. So like a lot of times I would be caught off guard and I wouldn't necessarily know what to do, and I would get killed before I could really figure out what I needed to do to move forward, you know?
Yeah.
And so I would die a few times and slowly figure out, okay, on this enemy, this is the weak point. This is what I need to try to do. And like I would prefer to be able to be faced with situations like that, but then like have the opportunity to figure it out without dying, rather than this trial. Like I don't know what they were. That might just be me being bad in those situations, but that was just something I noticed. Like, and then it was always super satisfying when I was able to figure out what I needed to do and get through the obstacles in front of me. But rather than just dying and having to go through it time and time again, it would have been cooler it would have been nice to have like a little bit more shielding, or like a way to protect myself a little bit more in those initial situations. I don't know how much of a chance you got to do some of the firefights and what your take on them were.
Yeah, so the guns, I mean, it wasn't like mind blowing, right? But then again, like we're talking about, this is being nitpicky because I don't think the game was meant to be like a combat game, right? Like
No,
I think it was more so meant to be, how do you react in this type of environment? Like what is combat in this type of environment? You know what I mean? Like there's no like crazy reloading mechanics. There's no, you know what I mean? Like we play games like that, like Onward, obviously, or like other, zombie shooters where, that's a big part of the game is like feeling like you're holding a gun. I think in this, it's just like the main thing that they want you to focus on is like, how do you react when you're in space and you're facing down threats and hostiles with a basic weapon. So
I agree with you on that.
So yeah, that to me I thought was good. Like it was it was a good part of the game. Freaked me the hell out for sure. So
see, that's like anytime you talk about being freaked out or like like feeling like I agree with you there. Like I think I wanted to point this out more for people that don't know about the game. Like if you're going into this game thinking like, oh, this is going to be a space shooter or something, then I don't think it's you're looking at the game in the right light. I think it's more like you said. Like I think even the gunplay is like more of a service towards the feel, the narrative feel that they're going for. Like they want you to feel like you're I guess like a space explorer in the station and reacting to things rather than like you're not like Rambo going through. You're this lone space guy or girl, and you're trying to find your way through the station.
Yeah, I agree. For me, like I said, it wasn't really about that. Like that, it's not like that took away or added to the game. Like it was just awesome as an experience. It's hard for me to kind of take that out of context and be like, oh, well, the gun, blah, 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 or like the shoot. Like to me, it was just like, holy crap. Like I need to move and I need to use like this grapple gun, or I need to grab something. I need to like, move around in space so that like I don't get killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling you're better at this game than me. That's just, I can already tell. 'Cause I can tell your mindset is like in sync with what the game wants you to be doing.
You know, maybe I just have a stronger like fight or flight panic mode reaction. So,
dude, I feel like that's what you would need if you were exploring a derelict.
I do not see. I'm the type of person, I don't even like going to haunted houses. Like why like sign up for that? I'm just not about that. So that's why this game like. It's so effective at what it does. You know, and to me, like if you're into those types of thrills, and I know a ton of people are, like you're gonna love it. And even if you're not, for someone like myself who like doesn't care much for like the you know, not because it's not zombies and it's not like supernatural. It's really like space horror, which I actually don't mind. I enjoyed a lot of the space horror movies that have come out. So which is why like I was actually excited to jump into this game, but like ultimately like I'm creeped out. I'm so like on edge and nervous the entire time that I'm in there, and like I just want to get through as quickly as possible. So but hold on, there's one thing that I do want to chat about real quick because I want to get your thoughts on it, and it was the use of the thumb pad to be able to rotate around, because that to me actually felt very much like a Rift feature that was carried over to the Vive.
So I mean, I've played both, and yeah, like I almost wish they took out the rotation from when you're playing on the Vive, because on the Rift it's totally like you have to use that, really, like if you don't have a room scale setup. Like on my Rift setup, I just have 2 sensors in front of me, and I'm using the sticks basically to rotate around all the time. Like I use that quite a bit to be in front, right? On the Vive, you don't need that because you have the room scale set up. And for me, I was doing my best to try to avoid hitting the sides. So on the Vive, I mean, when the Vive version is working properly, I feel like that's the best way to play it. Like I was able to maneuver environments much better than on the Rift personally, because I'm used to being able to turn around in real space and not having to rely upon like when I was on the Rift, I used that stick to kind of rotate a lot. But when I'm in like serious situations or when I'm not paying attention, I tend to try to, even if it's just moving in my play area slightly, eventually I'll be facing the wrong direction and the sensors will be wigging out, and then I realize, oh crap, I'm backwards. Like I need to turn around, and that would take me out of the experience. On Vive, that never happens to me. So like on Vive, no matter how much you're turning around in space, the trackers are always tracking you perfectly, and so you're never taken out of the experience for tracking issues. But then yeah, like the way they have the button set up, if you push the trackpad in the middle, that puts away your weapon. And in this game, that's a pretty big mechanic, because you're able to maneuver things in the environment using your hands, and so you can't. But you have to put away whatever items you're carrying in order to do that. So if you want to use a grapple gun with one hand and a gun in the other hand, for example, in order to open a door, you're going to have to put away one of those items and use just your bare hands to move down the latch to open the door. Mm-hmm. So on the Vive controllers, the way they have that set up is it's like a quick, rather than having to go through the menu system to put away your weapon individually, you can just cycle through the equipped item or your hands, like back and forth quickly, just by pressing the middle of that button.
Yeah.
But if you push the trackpad on the side instead of down the center, on the side, it's going to rotate you.
Yep.
And so I noticed that is something that could easily be fixed, like with an option just to say like disable rotation or something. And I didn't see anything like that when I was looking through it. Like as far as like that's maybe one downside to games like this, where I mean it's worth mentioning that Downward Spiral is compatible with non-VR as well. So you don't have to have a VR system, though. I mean, me personally, I think this game. I mean, I don't think you'd be doing it quite justice by playing it only in non-VR. Like a lot of the atmospheric
I
stuff.
agree. Like that's really where the charm of the game comes in for me.
Yeah. But I noticed like a lot of the graphics menus and like the control menus and all that kind of stuff. At least when I looked at it from my memory, those all seemed more geared towards the desktop version, and so there weren't like a lot of like changes that I could make that would affect the VR mode like directly. So I wish maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone can chime in the comments or something. But yeah, I didn't see any way to turn off that rotation. So I would have liked to do that because yeah, if that trackpad were just used to just for select like putting away your guns alone, I think that would be perfect because then you don't have to worry about the rotation kind of pulling you out of the experience. On the Rift, it's totally something that's super useful, and like I wouldn't want to play the game without it. But
so here's my thought process on this, because like I was really curious to hear what you thought, especially because you did play it on both Vive and Rift.
Yeah.
It's definitely immersion breaking in the sense that like your body doesn't move like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it was so useful. Like I found myself like being super dependent on it, and actually kind of like grateful that I didn't have to like continue turning around just because it's the movement in this type of VR experience. It's not like you can just like stand and turn around, you know what I mean? No. And then you start doing locomotion in a different direction. Like there's like a lot of turning involved, and to deal with that with a wired experience, or even probably with a wireless experience, like I just felt like it to me ended up being something that I became heavily reliant on, for better or for worse.
Okay. I mean, so like I said, in the Rift version, I do it all the time. Like for me in the Vive, I did use it sometimes, but a lot of times I didn't use it, and that was my only issue with it on the Vive, was just that sometimes I would click it when I wasn't intending to. So that was the only thing for me, and that might just be like one of my Vive controllers isn't in the best shape. Like the trackpad's a little screwed up. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's on my hardware, but like, yeah, it was just when I wasn't intending to push it, the fact that they had the rotation on the same, button as putting away the gun, that was my issue. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's super useful to have that ability, because even, I mean, let's be honest, like even in a play area on a Vive where you're able to rotate in circles and everything, like you still want to be standing facing the front of your play area. Like if you're too disoriented, you're gonna hit weird furniture, or like it's nice to be able to like center yourself properly, and that those kind of systems help you do that.
No, 100%.
And then I'm trying to think. Oh, one other, like, I guess just technical thing. I mean, besides the fact that, like I said, for some reason on my system, it seemed like it might be running a little bit differently as far as graphics wise on the Vive compared to the Rift. Again, I'd be interested to see if other people have that experience, for people that have both. For me, it seemed like it might be doing that. The other thing I noticed was just sometimes on the Vive version, when you're opening doors, going from room to room, sometimes on my system, it would kind of flash the Steam VR, like middle of nowhere environment for a split second before going to the next room. And like that was something that I didn't notice on the Rift. Like on the Rift, it would just fade to black and go into the next room. So like that's something.
I don't think I noticed that, but it's a good call out.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's just inherent to, like, I almost wonder if it's like a loading issue on my computer or something, but it was just something I noticed. So.
Gotcha. Well, let's go into like overall impressions now. I mean, I think we hit our three main buckets pretty in depth.
Last thing on the gameplay actually is the puzzles. I mean, my only thing I wanted to mention on the puzzles is that for me, the puzzles were less about being challenging, more about exploration and about like fun VR mechanics. Like, and like I always enjoyed trying to figure out what I should be doing, where I should be going, and then usually the mechanics around flipping switches, maneuvering canisters, all that kind of stuff. It was all easy, but like it was fun to do. It gives you something fun to do in VR. So like
and again, a lot of that was the movement, right? Like it's just like it's very basic things that you need to accomplish, but the fact that you have to do them in a very non-traditional way is kind of like the charm of the game in that respect.
Yep. So yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to add to that is so I mean, going into I guess my final impressions, I mean, I think this is a masterfully created game as far as like the atmosphere goes. I mean, I haven't really played any other space adventure type game that really makes you feel like you're exploring a real environment, like Downward Spiral. I mean, I felt like I was in a space station. I felt like I was in a classic sci-fi movie, and the way they break it down into acts was really, really smart, because I never felt pressured. Like I couldn't just like go into the game. Like I know you had only had like, like certain like a single or a couple of play sessions. For me, I'd gone back and forth throughout the game, and I always felt very comfortable knowing that, oh, I have like a good 45-minute chunk of time. Let me get through an act of the game. And like, and I really, I mean, for me anyways, I think I tend to explore more than your average person. But I mean, each act for me is usually a solid, 30 minutes to an hour, more often an hour. And the fact that I think there are like, how many acts are there? I think there are 8 acts in the game. So I mean, it's a substantial game. So I mean, so my overall impression is, if you're the kind of person that wants to experience something, you want to experience what it would feel like to be in one of those cerebral kind of classic sci-fi type horror action, horror movies, then this is a game that you really, if you're into sci-fi, you don't want to miss this game, because it does all that stuff well. It does that stuff, exceptionally, I'd say. If you're coming to this game looking for, an action shooter or an in-depth puzzle game or something, then this probably isn't the game for you. This game, I think, for me anyways, is all about the atmosphere, is all about the mood and feeling that you have about being in those environments. And for people that love sci-fi, this is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to echo everything you said. It's funny because we've been trying to do a game talk for this game for a while, and you'd been mentioning it to me in passing or texting me for the last couple of weeks. And you're like, hey, I think you'd really like this game. I think you really like this game. And when we finally got around to playing it, I was like, yeah, Ronnie's right. Aside from the fact that like I am scared out of my mind, or like just creeped out of my mind. I'm just a sci-fi guy, right? Like I love a lot of like space shows. For anyone watching The Expanse right now, that's probably one of my favorite shows. It just got saved by Amazon, so little plug there for one of my top shows.
I noticed you tweeting about that quite a bit. I haven't watched it before, but like I could tell you were really excited that
I don't get like emotionally attached to a lot of shows, but I guess we can talk about it a little bit just because it's somewhat relevant, but it's a show about obviously space and the future. But I just think that it's a really like grounded show in science. And yeah, so that, I mean, the drama around it was that like it's in its 3rd season. I think its 3rd season is like over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, or like overall it's like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like solid show, but there was just a bad distribution deal that they had with Sci-fi, so Sci-fi canceled it. And so for like a week and a half, there was like a huge fan campaign to like get it saved, and Amazon finally picked it up, I want to say a week or two ago, for a 4th season. But if you're into this type of stuff, if you're into space and into like just that whole genre, sci-fi, like really grounded sci-fi, like it's definitely a great movie, or not movie. It's definitely a great show to watch. And for anyone who's into like the political intrigue of something like Game of Thrones, I actually discovered the show when I was like literally Googling what to watch between seasons of Game of Thrones. So it kind of popped up there. But that being aside, because I'm a huge fan of that genre of movie and television, this game really spoke to me, and like it was just cool to be in that environment, and not just the environment, but the gameplay was done well. The narrative, I know we were getting nitpicky, but the narrative was really done well too, because a lot of it is just like you're in it. You have to explore. You have to like really, see what's going on. So, a big fan of the game. I'm looking forward to finishing it. I haven't gotten through the entire thing yet. But
and the fact that they have, I know we didn't focus on this, but the fact that they included co-op and multiplayer and everything, like you can tell that they're doing what they can to really give players as much as they can.
But it's funny that you mentioned that you prefer to do this in or like as a solo, because I mean that's really when it's the creepiest, right? That's really when you feel like the presence in the environment. The moment somebody else is talking in your headpiece or through a microphone or whatever the case is, like
I agree.
You're like, oh, okay, we're just two dudes sitting in our living rooms across, whatever, trying to get through this game. Whereas like when you're by yourself, it's a totally different feeling.
You're lost. You get lost in that world. Like, I mean, really, you do feel like you're somewhere else.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's such a cool feeling. Like as scary as it can be sometimes, it's really cool. Like that's why, I mean, I could play it. We could both play it non-VR, but like, I can't imagine wanting to play it. Like, if you have a headset, you should be playing this game in VR.
Yeah. And just for the simple fact, like there's an option on there where you can actually do like no hostiles. It's just like explore mode. So I think you actually go through the entire campaign without there being a need to like actually fight anyone or like anything scary. And even that, because like I started off in that, and even that is still super creepy, right? Because it's just like, nothing's gonna pop out at you, but you're still like I feel so uncomfortable in this room right now. I feel so uncomfortable with how the lighting in this room is making me feel, how the room set up, and how I don't trust like the doors opening and closing behind me. You know what I mean? It's just like they did a really, really great job with the sense of presence in the game. So I'm like I said, I'm thoroughly impressed with it. You know my taste well, it seems like, because you recommended it. So kudos or hats off to the development team, and it seems like this is going to be one chapter in many of I guess Downward Spiral series for them. So I'm really looking forward to see what else they have coming out in the future, because with VR the way that it is and how quickly it's advancing, and now that they have such a good foundation to build off of, things are only looking upward from here, which I'm excited about.
No, I agree. Like, the more talented developers we have working on VR titles, and Third Eye Studios did an amazing job on this, and I can't wait to see more from them. So,
for sure. So, cool, man. Well, is there anything else you got with this episode, or?
No, I think we're good. Just getting prepped and excited about E3 next week. So it's a little bit different from GDC for me, anyways, as far as like. Just trying to figure out exactly what the VR landscape is going to be looking like. There's been a lot of other, VR conferences and different stuff that have been happening, prior to E3. So I'm not sure how much brand new stuff is going to be announced there, especially for the Vive. But we'll see what happens. And I'm going to be all ears and all eyes for any folks that I can talk to while I'm there about different games that are being shown. So,
cool, man.
And I'll give my impressions just on every whether it seems like there's going to be a lot of cool PlayStation VR type stuff that's going to be shown. I'm excited about this new. They just announced like this VR Tetris game that's from the maker of Rez. So that's going to be a really cool cool. Okay. I can't wait to try that out. And the fact that Rez Infinite came out in. It was initially a PlayStation VR exclusive, but it eventually came out to the other platforms. So I'm hopeful that some of these games that are PlayStation VR exclusives will eventually trickle over to the PC. So I'm going to be trying to cover all things VR related as far as I can, and then report back. So.
Awesome, man. Yeah, well, we'll definitely keep in touch. Like I said, I'll be out of town, but I think the next week or two, just with kind of our travel and a little bit of hectic schedules, we'll be posting a lot from GDC, and probably something similar. Sorry, not GDC, but similar to what we did with GDC. We'll be posting a lot of the updates and reactions and things that you come across at E3. And I know you said when you were looking at the kind of at the agenda of things, like it's not obviously as heavy in VR as VR DC and GDC were, but I think that there's still going to be a lot of really fascinating stuff in there, and just to see where the whole medium is going, I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So
awesome, Matt. Well, safe travels, and we'll check in with all of you guys next week. But hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, and enjoy this game. Let us know what you think, and if there's other games you guys want us to check out, definitely let us know. We've gotten actually quite a bit of reactions and responses and recommendations through Twitter, right, Ronnie? So that's been really cool for us because there's so much out there, and we're doing our best to filter through and provide some type of feedback and background, obviously with developer interviews and things like that. So if there's stuff out there you guys want to know more about or want us to cover, definitely let us know. And as always, if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever you are listening to this on, we would very much appreciate it. And Ronnie, man, have a good one. We'll talk again soon.
You too, and safe travels.
Thanks, Matt. Take care.